of new caps.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd get maybe 4 boxes and somebody else would...
So you stole it?
Well, we borrowed it. And then they were our chips in a poker game. That's how we, you know, I'm in for 3 chips, and that's how we played poker.
That's creative.
We didn't have money, but we had bottle tops. What else did we say? What other games did we have? Hundreds of the games. So stickball.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have bases, but home plate would be a sewer cover.
Mm-hmm.
And people parked in the streets, they didn't have garages,
Yeah.
even if they had a car. So the car would be first base.
Mm-hmm.
The other sewer cover would be second base. The third base would be the back fender of another car.
Mm-hmm.
And then your sewer cover was home.
Yeah, that's cool. Alright, so do any particular battles stand out in your memory? Explain.
In the war?
Yeah. Sorry.
D-Day. That was the start of our push into Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And Germans were waiting for us. They had bombs, not bombs, but had artillery shooting 40mm shells.
Mm-hmm.
They'd have machine guns. They had grenades. And as our guys got off, dropped, the front of the landing craft dropped, and all our guys started running off.
Mm-hmm.
Germans wouldn't fire right away. They wait until there was 1,000 guys on the beach,
Yeah.
and then they'd start shooting. And the first wave of guys going in usually is called the suicide wave.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as the flaps dropped, and they jumped in the water and stopped trying to get to the beach and get up on the beach and fall down and try to avoid the bullets.
Yeah.
I don't know how many died on D-Day, but it was quite a few American soldiers.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there were cliffs. And we had special trained force that would take the rope that they were assigned with hooks on the end, and they would throw them up as high as they could to catch on to some of the rocks in the wall.
What if it slipped off, though?
Tough on you. You either got injured, dead, or died. But most of them made it to the top, but at the top the Germans were waiting for them.
Mm-hmm.
And would stand over and just shoot them right off the wall. But many of them got through with their weapons and started fighting the Germans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the whole thing progressed.
Yeah.
So D-Day, not only American soldiers, there was Canadians, there's all kinds of countries with men on those boats.
Mm-hmm.
Young kids, middle-aged men, young kids that were too young to fight were there too, in uniform,
Yeah.
because they wanted to be.
You wanted to fight for their country?
Mm-hmm. Special group, or the greatest generation.
Yeah. How did you get your information about, like, the news about the war?
Well, we had the newspaper. They had a newspaper. I don't know how often it came out, but the soldiers would find out what was happening in Africa or in the Pacific,
Yeah.
and they could follow what was going on. They couldn't really follow what they were involved with because nobody had time to do a newspaper.
Yeah.
So they had to figure it out for themselves. And then word by phone would be passed on, and bit by bit all the guys found out what they were doing, where they were going.
Mm-hmm. Didn't you say there was news before?
There was news on the radio. And later on, they didn't have it earlier, but later on, they would have news of the day, and that would run for maybe 15 minutes. And they always spoke about progress being made, where it was being made, loss of life, and they didn't talk about too much about loss of life because in some areas it was just traumatic. The number of guys we lost. And then letters home. And your letters were read by guys proficient enough to know what could be said in the letter and what couldn't be said. In other words, don't give away secrets. Inadvertently, gee, I'd be writing, I'm in Stuttgart, Germany now, we're pushing on to the middle of Germany. You never told where the forces were, so they would just blot that out completely.
Yeah.
But I love you. How's Mike and Jim and Jane, and how's Dad doing? That kind of stuff. They were all out. But even then, it was hard to write letters because you're always fighting or on the move. Not me. I was 11.
Yeah.
But great army. Okay.
Did any of your family members serve in the military at that time?
Not immediate family, but I had a cousin who joined the Marine Corps. I had an uncle who was in the Army. He never made it home.
I'm sorry.
And happened to every family. But the young man, I think of him a lot. He joined the Marine Corps.
Your cousin?
That's the toughest branch of any army. And he was in all the Pacific landings, all the hard-fought. Japanese were instilled in that. We were fighting in Europe and we were fighting in Japanese at the same time, which takes a lot to do.
Yeah.
And Japanese were ready for war. We weren't. It came as a big surprise with Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
But so the little islands out in the Pacific that Japan owned, they took it over, were knee-deep in Japanese soldiers. Thousands of them. They were like ants.
Yeah.
And they were tough to dig out and get rid of, so to speak. And we lost a lot of men too.
Yeah.
One landing was Okinawa.
With what?
Okinawa. To declare victory on that island, we physically lost 4,000 guys.
Yeah, that's a ton of people.
If not 5,000. And my cousin was he fought in 3 of those islands.
Really?
So when he came home, he wasn't the same.
Yeah.
He was not happy. He sulked a lot. He wanted to be alone.
Yeah.
That's what happens in war. That's it.
Yeah. How did you communicate with him?
By letter. Which went through all mail was handled by the branches of the service. And if you wrote something that was out of line, inadvertently you gave your location, then the guy reading the letter would stamp it out. So a lot of letters had just black marks on everything because inadvertently you're giving out information for somebody to see.
Yeah.
But mainly that way. That's the only way.
Yeah. Did you remember anything about V-mail?
V-mail.
Or like any codes that you used back and forth?
You couldn't use any code. Oh, you mean legal codes?
Yeah, like code to tell someone.
You couldn't do that.
Yeah.
They would not. They would just black it out. You couldn't pass that because by you giving that information, you're giving the location of the outfit you're in.
Mm-hmm.
So it not only affected you, but it would affect 3,000 soldiers or 3,000 Marines.
Yeah.
So the censors, men in service, would ink it out so nobody could read it.
Yeah.
That's what I said. Many letters were more ink outs than talking about home.
Yeah.
But eventually the GIs got used to it, what they could say and what they couldn't say.
Mm-hmm. What were you doing when you heard of Germany's surrender and Hitler's death? Describe your feelings at the time.
Well, the first word was whoopee. Everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Especially for the guys that were over there fighting. But to know that you defeated Germany, which was unbelievable, because they prepared for it for years.
Mm-hmm.
They killed a lot of our guys, but we got them too.
Yeah.
And ultimately Germany surrendered. I don't want to go into details, but that's basically it.
You can go into details.
Well, it was a hard-fought war.
Mm-hmm.
We had Screaming Eagles, hundreds of them, jumping from airplanes into the middle of Germany, fighting off German soldiers who at least expected them to drop from the air.
Yeah.
A lot of them were shot coming down. A lot of them landed in trees and were shot in the trees. All dead. But our guys got through it.
Yeah.
A lot of moms cried, but our men got through.
What was your reaction to the news of death of FDR? And
Very sad. He was probably one of the strongest leaders the country could have.
mm-hmm.
And he made sure the war was being fought correctly.
Yeah.
He was concerned about casualties, which were numerous. And the laws that he had and the laws that he passed made life better back home. Made it better for the GIs too.
Mm. What was your opinion of Mr. Roosevelt?
I had high opinion of him. He was one of the best presidents ever.
Mm-hmm.
He handled, as I said, he handled the war just right.
Yeah.
Did you know he was paralyzed from the waist down?
I did, actually. That was awful.
A lot of people didn't know that until the war was over.
Mm-hmm.
He struggled.
Yeah.
Infantile paralysis. Heavy metal on both legs so he could keep them straight. He got through a whole war.
Yeah.
2 wars, actually.
That's a lot.
So it was handled right. And you had been to his house, right?
Yeah.
Down on the Hudson?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that an amazing place?
It was.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your reaction to the news of the atom bomb being dropped on Japan? Do you support President Truman's decision?
Initially shock, but we knew it was coming. And we told the Japanese, if we had sent in planes and soldiers, they all would have been killed. There would have been a massacre. So rather than take a chance of losing all those lives, President Truman warned Japan by radio that defeat is coming. It will be unimaginable, but it's the cost of being in a war. And they poo-pooed it, and they poo-pooed it. We dropped one atomic bomb, wiped out a city. I don't know how many people, maybe 600,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Leveled it completely. Japan fought on.